Ladies and gentlemen, certainly, here's a Shi Heng Yi style intro for your motivational speech titled, How to Never Get Angry or Bothered by Anyone, delivered with calm authority, inner stillness, and deep introspection. In life, we often believe that it is the world that disturbs us, the words of others, the unfair actions, the unexpected obstacles. But what if I told you, it is not the outside world that creates your suffering, it is your inner world that reacts when someone speaks against you, when a person wrongs you, when things don't go your way. You feel anger, frustration, annoyance. But those emotions, they arise within you. You do not control the wind, the rain, or the behavior of others, but you can master the way your inner temple responds. Today, I want to share not just techniques, but understanding. Not tricks to avoid anger, but wisdom to dissolve it. You will not learn how to fight your anger. You will learn how to walk past it, untouched. You will not suppress what bothers you. You will outgrow it. This is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming unshakable. It is not about ignoring life. It is about becoming so alive that no disturbance from the outside can move the silence within. Let us begin, not to escape anger, but to rise above it, not to change others, but to master the only thing we ever truly can, ourselves. Mastery begins when you stop blaming the external and start observing the internal. This simple shift is the foundation of inner transformation. Most people spend their entire lives pointing fingers outward. They believe it is the words of another that cause anger, or the actions of someone else that disturb their peace. But this belief is flawed. It assumes that your emotional state is controlled by forces outside of you, which leaves you powerless. Real mastery is about taking back that power, not by controlling others, but by mastering the one thing you truly own, your inner world. When someone insults you, the immediate tendency is to react. You may feel hurt, defensive, or even enraged. But if you pause and observe, you will notice something very important. The insult is just sound. It is neutral until your mind assigns it meaning. Your conditioning, your ego, your past experiences, they all jump in and create a story. That story fuels your emotional response. In truth, the power was never in the other person's words. It was always in your interpretation, and once you see this clearly, you begin to understand that peace is not something others can give or take away. It is something you either protect or abandon within yourself. This process of observation requires discipline. It requires you to stop running on autopilot. It demands that you become still and aware of what's happening inside you at the moment of discomfort. This is where training begins, not physical training, but mental and emotional training. You must become like a monk in the marketplace, able to observe chaos around you without letting it disturb the quiet within. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens through repetition, through self-inquiry, through conscious choice. Every time you feel irritated by someone, ask yourself, what is really happening here? Is it the person, or is it my attachment to being right? Is it their behavior, or is it my need for control? These questions begin to open a space between stimulus and response. And in that space, freedom grows. The more you observe without reacting, the more you start to see your patterns. Perhaps you always react when someone questions your intelligence, or maybe you get defensive when you feel ignored. These are not flaws to be ashamed of. They are simply signals pointing to parts of yourself that need healing. Observation does not mean suppression. It does not mean pretending you don't feel anger. It means becoming so deeply aware of it that it loses its grip over you. Like a storm cloud passing through the sky, you watch the emotion come and go, but you no longer become it. This is the power of inner stillness. And from this stillness, a new type of strength emerges, one that does not need to shout, one that does not need to fight, one that does not need to prove anything to anyone. The external world will continue to move as it always has. People will come and go, some will praise you, others will criticize. Situations will unfold beyond your control, but none of this has to determine your state of mind. Once you shift your focus inward, you begin to realize that anger and frustration are not reactions to reality. They are reactions to your expectations of reality, and the more you let go of those expectations, the more at peace you become. You stop trying to change others and instead begin the far more powerful process of transforming yourself from within. The journey begins not with changing the world, but with deeply knowing who you are and how you function under pressure. Emotions are not commands, they are visitors. You choose whether to host them. Many people live as though their emotions have ultimate authority over their actions, thoughts, and behaviors. The moment anger arrives, they act in anger. When irritation appears, they speak with irritation, but emotions are not orders. They are signals. They arise, they pass through the mind and body, and they leave. The problem begins when we identify with them, believe they are us, and allow them to dictate what we say and do. If someone knocks on your door, you have the choice to open it or not. The same is true with emotions. Just because anger is knocking doesn't mean you must let it in, sit it down, and serve it tea. This metaphor is important because it shows that you are not powerless. You are the gatekeeper of your mind. You decide which thoughts you engage with, which emotions you amplify, and which ones you let pass like clouds in the sky. When you become more conscious, you start to notice that emotions come and go like waves. They rise due to a trigger, perhaps someone's rude comment, a betrayal, a misunderstanding, but they do not last forever. What makes them linger is your attachment to the story behind the emotion. For example, someone cuts you off in traffic, and instead of just noticing the feeling of frustration and letting it go, you begin to tell yourself a story. That person is so disrespectful. Why do people always do this to me? Or I can't believe how unfair the world is. That story feeds the emotion, and suddenly a moment of anger becomes a day of bitterness. To live peacefully, you must create space between the emotion and your response. When anger arises, become aware of its presence. Watch how it affects your breathing, your heartbeat, your thoughts. Just watch without reacting. When you stop giving emotions your full identity, you begin to disarm them. You begin to see that you are not your anger, not your sadness, not your irritation. These are simply weather patterns of the mind, and like all weather, they pass. Meditation, breathing, and mindfulness are not tools to eliminate emotion. They are tools to observe them with clarity. You sit, breathe, and allow whatever arises to arise, without judgment, without resistance. Over time, this practice builds a space inside you, a space where you no longer immediately react. In that space, wisdom grows. In that space, peace becomes your default state, not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer at the mercy of every emotional wave. It's also important to understand that resisting emotions or suppressing them is not the same as mastering them. Suppression creates pressure. It builds up under the surface until one day it explodes. Mastery is about allowing the emotion to arise, but remaining free from its control. It is about feeling the anger, acknowledging it, and choosing not to let it speak for you. That choice is where true strength lies. Over time, with training and inner awareness, you begin to see that no one truly makes you angry. They may trigger something, but the reaction is yours. That reaction is conditioned by your past, your beliefs, your expectations. And those can be examined, changed, and let go. Emotional freedom is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of a powerful inner witness who sees everything and chooses with wisdom. When you begin to see emotions as visitors rather than rulers, your whole relationship with life changes. You become calm in chaos, steady in the storm, and untouched by the noise of the world. Stillness is not weakness. It is the highest form of self-control. In a world that constantly rewards reaction, speed, and dominance, Stillness is often misunderstood. People assume that to remain silent is to accept defeat, that to walk away is to give in, that to stay calm is to show weakness. But true stillness is not the absence of power, it is the containment of immense strength. It is the conscious decision to not let the external world dictate the inner state. It is the mastery of response rather than the slavery of reaction. When someone insults you and you respond with calmness, it is not because you lack the ability to fight back. It is because you have developed the strength to rise above the need to. This is the difference between the trained and the untrained mind. An untrained mind seeks to protect the ego at all costs. It reacts instantly, fueled by pride, fear, and insecurity. A trained mind sees through the illusion of the moment and holds its center. It recognizes that reacting is easy, but staying still requires discipline. Stillness allows you to see situations clearly. When you are agitated, your mind is clouded, your breath becomes shallow, your decisions become poor. In stillness, the fog clears. You can perceive the motives of others without getting entangled in them. You can recognize manipulation without being pulled by it. You can sense provocation and simply observe it like a leaf floating on a stream. This clarity is what leads to wise decisions, and wise decisions lead to peace. The path to stillness begins with awareness. You must first notice how quickly you are pulled by every disturbance, how a single comment can hijack your entire emotional system, how your body tenses, your heart rate rises, your mind starts racing with defense and attack. When you see this happening, you learn the value of stillness, not as a passive state, but as a deliberate and powerful pause. A gap between impulse and action where you can choose a higher response. In this pause, you are not running from confrontation, you are mastering it, because you are choosing the response that serves your peace rather than your pride. The world may not understand this. The world may label you as cold, passive, or indifferent, but those who know themselves do not need the approval of those who don't. They move with inner guidance, not external validation. The practice of stillness is supported by discipline, waking early to meditate, breathing deeply in tense moments, reflecting before speaking. These small acts build the inner reservoir of calm. And as this reservoir grows, you become less reactive, more centered. Situations that once shook you now pass like gentle wind. Words that once pierced your heart now echo without impact. You no longer carry the burden of other people's emotions on your shoulders. Stillness is not about avoiding life. It is about meeting life with a calm that cannot be disturbed. This does not mean you will never feel anger or sadness. It means you will not be controlled by them. You will feel deeply but choose wisely. You will act with intention, not impulse. You will move not because someone pushed you, but because you decided it was the right step. In this way, stillness becomes the highest form of power. It is the warrior's calm before battle, the monk's quiet in the chaos, the master's silence amidst noise. Those who possess it are unshakable, not because life is easy for them, but because they have trained themselves to remain still even when everything around them demands a reaction. What disturbs you reveals where you are still not free. Every irritation, every burst of anger, every moment of discomfort is not just a reaction, it is a mirror. A mirror that shows you the inner attachments, insecurities, and unresolved areas of your mind that still seek control, validation, or protection. Most people believe the problem lies outside, in the rude driver, the disrespectful colleague, the inattentive partner. But the truth is, the disturbance lies within, and life is constantly offering you the opportunity to see it. Imagine someone criticizes you in public. If their words trigger rage, ask yourself why. Is it because you value your image too much? Is it because deep down you are uncertain about what they said? Or is it because you've been conditioned to seek approval and avoid shame? The anger is not just about them. It's a signal that something inside you still depends on being seen a certain way. That dependency is a form of bondage. It means your peace is not free. It is tied to how others perceive you. When you begin to view disturbances as teachers, everything changes. Instead of being a victim of situations, you become a student of the self. You start noticing that certain situations provoke you again and again. The same type of person, the same kind of criticism, the same kind of rejection. These recurring patterns are not coincidences. They are signposts pointing to the places in your psyche that have yet to be liberated. Freedom is not the absence of conflict. It is the ability to remain centered despite it, and you cannot achieve this unless you know where you are still entangled. If someone's success makes you envious, that envy is not about them. It is about your own lack of acceptance, perhaps the comparison mindset, or the belief that you are not enough. If someone's behavior annoys you beyond reason, maybe it reflects something within you that you dislike or try to suppress. These insights do not come from blaming, but from observing with honesty and humility. This inner investigation requires courage, because it is easier to judge others than to question yourself. But the deeper you go, the more you start to see the truth. People will do what they do, the world will behave as it does, but your suffering only arises when your inner state depends on these external variables. The more conditions you place on your happiness, the more places you give for disturbance to grow. The less you need things to be a certain way, the more unshakable your peace becomes. Freedom is not about controlling life. It is about releasing the grip of your emotional dependence on outcomes, people, and situations. When something disturbs you, welcome it, not to indulge it, but to understand it. Ask what belief it touches, what fear it activates, what story it awakens. Then sit with it, observe it, breathe through it, and over time, the grip loosens. You begin to notice that the things which once disturbed you lose their power, not because the world changed, but because you did. You confronted your shadows, you dissolved your attachments, you let go of the need for constant agreement, validation, or comfort. And with that letting go, a space opens inside you, a space where no opinion can shake your worth, where no insult can wound your silence, where no chaos can steal your stillness. In this space you are free, not because life has no turbulence, but because you are no longer tossed around by it. Every moment that disturbs you is no longer an enemy. It is a message saying, here is where you must grow. And growth is the path to liberation, not by changing the world outside, but by breaking the chains you didn't even know you were carrying inside. Reactions are habits of the untrained mind. Respond with awareness, not impulse. The way most people interact with the world is automatic. A word is spoken and anger erupts. A situation changes and frustration appears. Someone disagrees and defensiveness takes over. These are not conscious choices. They are reflexes born from years of conditioning, emotional memory, and mental programming. The untrained mind doesn't pause to understand. It reacts to protect itself, and in doing so, it sacrifices peace for the illusion of control. To live unconsciously is to be ruled by these patterns. The person becomes a puppet pulled by emotional strings. Whenever the right trigger is activated, the same predictable reaction occurs, but awareness cuts these strings. It introduces a moment of space between stimulus and response. In that space lies the opportunity to choose, to see clearly, to step back and ask, is this how I want to respond? That single pause is the beginning of mastery. Impulse is fast, blind, and rooted in survival. Awareness is slow, steady, and grounded in wisdom. When something provokes you, it is not the situation that has power, it is your inability to pause that gives it power. This is why reaction is so dangerous. It gives your energy to the external world without your consent. It robs you of your sovereignty. Every time you react without thinking, you surrender the most powerful thing you possess, your conscious choice. Training the mind begins with observation. Watch yourself throughout the day. Notice when you're reacting. Was it the tone of someone's voice, a criticism, a delay in plans? Observe how your body feels, how your breath changes, how your thoughts start to race. In that moment, become the witness instead of the reactor. See the whole chain unfolding as if you were watching someone else. This detachment gives you the ability to choose a different path. One of the most powerful practices is to replace reaction with breath. Before you respond to anything triggering, take one conscious breath, just one. That breath acts like a break in the pattern. It reminds you that you are not a machine. You are not bound to your past reactions. You are capable of responding with clarity, grace, and wisdom. That breath is a doorway to awareness, and the more you walk through it, the more natural it becomes. Awareness allows you to see the truth beneath the surface. You realize that most people who are angry are in pain, that most rude behavior is a symptom of inner turmoil, that arguments are often not about the present moment, but old wounds being projected forward. With awareness, you can meet aggression with calm, misunderstanding with patience, and insult with silence, not out of weakness, but out of the strength that comes from not needing to prove yourself in every moment. Reaction belongs to the ego. It wants to win, to defend, to control, but response comes from the soul. It seeks to understand, to connect, to rise. When you shift from reaction to response, you no longer feel like a victim of your circumstances. You feel empowered, balanced, and at peace even when others are not. You are no longer pushed and pulled by the chaos around you because your center is strong. It takes practice to rewire the old habits. But each moment of awareness plants a new seed, a seed of stillness, of clarity, of conscious living. With time, these seeds grow into new patterns, responses born from wisdom instead of wounds, and as these new patterns take root, your life begins to transform. You feel more grounded, less drained, more present, less at war with the world. Reaction becomes rare, and presence becomes your natural state. In that presence, life becomes more spacious, more peaceful, and far more powerful than anything impulse could ever achieve. The true warrior conquers not others, but the chaos within himself. In a world that celebrates dominance, competition, and outward success, it is easy to be misled into thinking that strength is about overpowering others. But real power lies not in defeating an opponent, but in mastering the mind, the chaos within the racing thoughts, uncontrolled emotions, the constant need for validation, the fear of judgment. That is the real battlefield. And until one has faced and overcome this internal storm, every external victory is incomplete. The inner chaos is subtle. It's the quiet frustration when things don't go your way, the resentment that builds from unmet expectations, the anxiety that rises before confrontation, the pride that refuses to listen. These are not seen on the surface, but they influence every word, every action, every decision. A person may appear calm and successful on the outside, yet be a slave to these invisible forces. The true warrior turns his focus inward, not because he is weak, but because he understands that the world outside is only a reflection of the world within. Facing this inner chaos requires courage. It demands that you stop blaming others for your suffering and begin to look deeply at your own reactions, attachments, and beliefs. When someone offends you, the untrained mind lashes out. The trained mind asks, "Why did this affect me?" When life becomes uncertain, the untrained mind panics. The trained mind breathes, watches, and waits. This self-awareness is the sword of the inner warrior. It cuts through delusion and reveals the truth. Silence becomes a powerful weapon, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of understanding. You no longer need to respond to every provocation because you see it for what it is, an invitation to lose yourself. You choose stillness, not because you cannot fight, but because the battle is no longer necessary. Your peace is no longer negotiable. You stop trying to prove your worth because you have discovered it is not dependent on recognition. You stop chasing approval because you have become your own source of validation. The journey inward is not always pleasant. You will face the parts of yourself you have tried to avoid, the insecurities, the fears, the pride, the past wounds. But with each honest look, something begins to shift. The chaos begins to lose its power. You start to recognize the triggers and slowly detach from them. You no longer need perfect conditions to feel balanced. The noise of the world fades because the noise within is being tamed. Discipline becomes your ally, not the harsh discipline of force, but the gentle, consistent discipline of showing up for yourself. Daily practices like meditation, breathwork, self-reflection, these become your training ground. Just as a warrior trains his body, you train your mind. You watch your thoughts like a guardian at the gate. You choose what enters, you decide what stays, and with each moment of awareness, you build your strength from the inside out. The external world continues to test you. People still disappoint, plans still fail, storms still come. But your response is no longer automatic. You observe, you assess, you respond with clarity. You are no longer at war with life. You move through challenges with grace, not because they don't affect you, but because they no longer control you. This is the strength of the true warrior, not brute force, but unshakable presence, not loud resistance, but quiet mastery. The world may see nothing extraordinary, but inside, a great victory has been won. The victory of stillness over chaos, of wisdom over impulse, of peace over pride.